Now let's cover how to use matching EQs and reference tracks to get different ideas of how your mixes can be improved. This method enables you to quickly try out different mix options and identify problems that you may have missed, or frequencies that you know you need to remove but are having trouble finding. So first, what I want to cover is what matching EQ is and what it's not, and then we'll jump into some practical examples and I'll show you how to use this on our drums. So matching EQ is a feature that's present on some advanced equalization plugins like iZotope's Ozone and the FabFilter Pro Q that enables you to scan a reference track and the song that you're working on, and it copies over the equalization curve from the reference onto your mix, so that it sounds like that reference mix. So matching EQ won't mix your song automatically, but what it can do is quickly generate some ideas to try in your mixdowns and identify weak spots in your equalization curves throughout your whole track that you may need to improve inside your mix. So if there's a weird frequency boost in your drums, especially in high end, for example, that you're hearing, but you can't figure out exactly where it is and how to remove it, then sometimes you can use matching EQ to automatically find that or to get close to it and then figure out what you need to remove. So think of matching EQ as an idea generator, some of which will be helpful in your mixdown and then others not so much. So what type of equalizer do you need for this? So you could really use any EQ that has a matching EQ feature. iZotope Ozone has a really great one, and so does the FabFilter Pro Q. And I believe that there's several other VSTs as well. For this one, we'll be using the FabFilter Pro Q. So the way that you set this up is you have a reference drum loop, or a reference loop of some type. They want to copy over the EQ curve. You'll put the first EQ on this one. Then you'll have a copy of the EQ on this other track as well, which is our drums. So this is the drum loop that I like the sound of. Has a really nice low end, it's nice and punchy sounding, and doesn't have too much high frequencies. And then we have our drum loop. But it definitely has a little bit too much of that sizzle and the high frequencies that I definitely want to remove. So both of these drum loops are definitely different from one another, but I like some of the fullness that comes into this reference drum loop, and I want to go ahead and incorporate some of that into my mix. So let's first start off with our reference. I'll go ahead and open up that equalizer. And the way this works is you go ahead and move over to the analyzer feature on this EQ, and you select EQ match, and then you play your source material. And just let that loop play all the way through. So this is the EQ curve from those drums. Let's go ahead and click this drop-down menu, and we could save this input, which is this input here, as a reference spectrum. Just name it something simple like drum loop. So that is all we have to do for that first equalizer. And then we will hop on over to the EQ for the drums. And we'll go ahead and open up the analyzer again. We want to select the drum loop as the reference. So that's that saved frequency curve, which you can see is now shown in red. Now let's go ahead and play back our drum loop. Then you can see there's this white line, which is the drum loop in my mixdown. And then there's this larger white line, which is showing what needs to be adjusted in order for those two curves to match. Then from there, all I have to do is select match. And it's going to give me a really crazy EQ curve. And I want to go ahead and move this points down to about 7, so that we only have 7 frequency cuts and boosts happening inside of our signal. Because we want to capture the overall kind of essence of this. We don't want to capture each individual frequency harmonic because these drums aren't exactly the same. We just kind of want the more general EQ adjustments. So we could select finish. And it gives us this super crazy equalizer curve. So by itself, this is definitely way too much. If you have everything zoomed in like this, make sure to zoom out so you could see all the individual points. And by itself, it's going to sound super crazy. It sounds like this. And right now, it's definitely not very helpful in terms of our mixdown. So what I like to do is I'd like to first make a few different adjustments. So what I do is I first remove all the points that aren't necessarily needed, that don't really make sense in terms of our EQ curve. So this one, for example, this really high frequency boost at 879 Hz doesn't really make any sense. It's definitely boosting all the resonances way too much. So let's go ahead and remove that one. Then we can hop on over to this other frequency boost, which is happening at over 20,000 Hz. So it's all these very, very upper high frequencies. Don't really need that one. It doesn't really make sense in terms of our mixdown. And then we can also go ahead, check this one out. We can go ahead and listen to it. That one may be helpful a bit later. And then this one low down to the kick. I actually like the way my kick's setting, so I don't need that one. And then from there, I go through each of these points and adjust them down to something a bit more reasonable. So right now, this is cutting everything by 9 decibels, which is way too much. Let's go ahead and just move this down by an amount of 2 decibels. So it's a much more subtle change. We'll do that here. Let's maybe have this down 1 decibel. Have this one cut 1 decibel as well. Make sure that's a negative value. And we'll do that with this one as well. And then let's go ahead and listen to what our EQ curve sounds like. So we're starting to make an improvement, but let's go ahead and identify some of these individual changes that are being made here. Let's take a look at this low end frequency boost. This is kind of a weird frequency boost. Let's go ahead, just remove that one. Make sure the right thing is selected here. Now let's take a listen to this upper kind of high frequency. This one's definitely removing some of those really upper high frequency harmonics. Let's go ahead and widen up that Q band. Maybe dip that one back a bit. That's kind of grabbing that sizzle and removing it, which is nice. Let's maybe have this one down -1 decibels. Even kind of narrow that Q just slightly. So that way it's not cutting out these frequencies up here. And I actually like what this equalizer curve is doing by default. It's removing some of that kind of resonance and sort of whistliness inside the drums. And then this one up top is removing that kind of weird sizzle. So this is before. If I was to make that a bit more drastic, you can hear what is changing. So it's removing some of that kind of top end sizzle. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this frequency curve here. And that's kind of helping fix that weird resonance inside of our snare. So what we're doing with this matching EQ is using it as a guide and then making adjustments based on the feedback that it's giving us to generate some ideas for our drums and to see what we can kind of adjust to make everything sound better. So whenever I use matching equalization, this is the way that I like to approach using this effect. The initial thing that it'll give you is always really, really crazy and doesn't sound good, but you can go ahead and reduce those frequency boosts and cuts, and it'll tighten up your drums and make it sound a bit closer to the reference material. So now whenever we reference those two pieces of audio, the initial audio sounded like this. So some of those upper high frequencies that were a bit overwhelming in my initial signal have been removed. Which makes it sound a bit closer to this reference material and help me discover some of those problems that I was having inside of my drums. So altogether, everything sounds like this. And you could hear that simple equalization curve kind of tames those drums a little bit and helps those high frequencies from popping out too much inside of our mixdown. So matching EQ is a helpful tool to use inside of your mixdowns, but take the feedback that the matching equalizer gives you and use it as an idea generator. It's not always 100% accurate, and sometimes it definitely won't work on your track, but what it can do is help you sometimes find frequencies that are giving you problems in your mix you're having a hard time finding, and generate a few different new ideas to try that can help you improve your mixes. So it's an excellent idea generator to use in your mixes, especially if you feel stuck on a certain sound. You could always load up a matching EQ and then reference material that you like the sound of and see if you can incorporate some equalization changes into your mix to help it improve.